Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for inviting me to this meeting in Helsinki. I am Icelandic. I come from the northern part of Iceland, from a herring town, where back in the 60s we made sure there was no more herring because we caught the last one. And that is what I saw in the 1980s when we set up the North Atlantic Salmon Fund, which is an organization that tries to protect, enhance and restore salmon stocks everywhere. We work in 14 countries, everywhere where salmon rivers are, that is to say wild Atlantic salmon rivers. We are not really much engaged in Baltic salmon or Pacific salmon, but the Atlantic salmon is our main goal. In the 1980s, we saw every year salmon deteriorating, less and less catches every year. So we decided to try to identify where was the most problems and see what priorities need to be done and implemented. And that is why we set up this North Atlantic Salmon Fund. We are a private sector organization. We are volunteers. We work in about 14 countries, and we have several hundreds, if not several thousands people helping us. We are not a membership organization, so that we don't, that we rely entirely on handouts from the private sector people. Is there? Yeah. Okay. So I was not quite sure what to talk about, but I think probably we would like to see create a new vision for salmon restoration all over Europe. I believe most of you know that the salmon stock in Europe have been declining more and more over the last 40 or 50 years, and that a sort of new intellectual interest is needed to put it all together and to have cooperative programs, the private sector and the public sector. Fortunately, in Iceland, it is mostly run by the private sector. We have private property rights, fishing rights in Iceland, like in Norway, like in Scotland, and we really like the government not to interfere at all. Already, we know a hell of a lot of salmon. Probably we know more about salmon than human beings. We have studied it really extensively. This is the salmon world where we address. Mostly salmon feed in the Atlantic in the temperature area of the surface temperature area between 4 and 8 degrees Celsius. When these salmon get bigger, they may venture down to 3 degrees and even 2.5 degrees. And with global warming, the salmon feeding grounds are moving further and further to the north. But this is our domain. I was in Greenland last month with people from the State Department and NOAA. We were talking to the Greenlanders because after 20 years of commercial agreement with Greenland, they decided to set commercial quota again, which really was a setback, and especially for the United States of America, where they probably have about 1,000 salmon left. That's all they have. And they told the Greenlanders, you have to do this for us, because all our salmon feed along the west coast of Greenland, and if you cut the last few, already, I believe the salmon is on the endangered species list in America, and something needs to be done. Greenland's answer was, I'm sorry, gentlemen, it's too late. You should have done it many, many years ago. So, anyway, this is the salmon world there. And as I know, this is about recreational fishing, this conference. We in Iceland, we think we catch about around 50,000 salmon a year, and we believe in the economic value, the direct, indirect, and related income from the salmon fishing is about 20 billion euros. and it creates about 1,200 jobs, so we only need about 40 salmon to create one full-time job. I mentioned this, there is a new economic study in Ireland providing that 750 million euros is created of the value there, but I think it is totally overestimated. In Canada, there was a study released last year showing that the value of Atlantic salmon there is about $200 billion US, creating about 3,800 jobs, which is very comparable to what we have in Iceland. In Scotland, the recreational value of salmon, we believe, is around 140 million pounds. So what are the problems as we see them today? Excuse me. We have natural climatic conditions changing all the time, and I think there are so many changes taking place in the marine environment which we haven't figured out and we have not addressed. So most of the reviews and recommendations that have come in European countries have been too little and sadly too late. We have overfishing, everybody. We have fishing right for salmon, upriver, middle river, downriver, in estuaries, in coastal waters, in the open seas and the high seas, and everybody has a right. Everybody says, leave me alone because we only take a little. The problem is that if everybody only takes a little, there's not enough fish. Very, very few fish. And we have poor regulations in many countries, so we have less and less broodstock in rivers, and because anglers really want to kill everything and eat it. And we have damaged and reduced habitat and contaminated waters and so on. And now, in the last 20, 30 years, we have the negative effect of the fish farming, agricultural runoff, and many, many other problems. This is just to show you what's happening in the last 10 years or so, showing the salmon catches in the EU countries and the salmon catches compared with the Icelandic statistics. Fortunately, we've been very lucky in Iceland, especially back in 1932 when the interceptory netting was banned in the ocean. We banned the netting then, but those who were fishing in nets at that time, declaring income and paying taxes, they could continue. And we engaged in the 1990s in buying out these remaining netting rights. So now and forever, fish from any nation can come and feed around Iceland and be safe that it's not going to be caught. I think we have a very similar pattern if we compare with Norway only. But that is one of the reasons, of course, we do not want to join the European Union. We don't want to share our fish stocks and share the same management methods as the European Union.
Is that commercial fishing or both commercial and recreational?
Sorry, this is total catches.
Both recreational.
Both everything. Yeah. There's very little really netting in the Atlantic. You have 1,000 times more fish in the Pacific, totally different concept. I just want to show you this because the EU has no jurisdiction during when most of the biomass of the salmon is created. It's outside Scotland, it is outside Europe. The point of this is to say, look guys in Europe, you have to cooperate with us because we provide all the biomass of the salmon is caught in these waters in Norway, in Iceland, and in Greenland and the Faroe Islands. Our agreement with this, for instance, the Faroe Islands has protected all the salmon in Scotland for great many years. But out of 1 million salmon we saved for Scotland in the Faroe Islands, 980,000 were caught in coastal nets in Scotland before the fish had a chance to go back into the rivers. I'm afraid afraid it's not a very good illustration, but I'm putting this up to show you what's happening in the northern part of Finland. There's a huge number of nets there, so-called krogan and kilinot, bent net and bag nets, which are intercepted, not just Norwegian salmon, but also Russian salmon. So in the spring, in May, June, July, about 60% of the salmon caught in the Finnmark nets are salmon returning to their native rivers on the Kola Peninsula. Sadly, the Russians are not complaining hard enough about this problem, because this is in violation of the United Nations Law of the Sea, Article 66, which provides if one is taking salmon from another nation, the nation of origin can demand a stop to the host nation, in this case Norway. But the Russians sadly are not pressing this issue hard enough. And in this part of the world, a lot of the salmon is caught in so-called krogan, which are very destructive, and is banned all over Norway, but allowed there. And I say it's because it's taking Russian salmon. Half of these nets are dormant, so we have not been able to go in there to buy our nets, because if we buy some nets, the Norwegian government would simply increase the allocation of other nets at the dormant. So where are the solutions? We find the solutions through private sector agreements, commercial agreements. We do not believe in wishful thinking resolution of governments that come together and say, you must behave. It has never worked. So we like to engage in commercial agreements. And this is what we have been promoting my fund for the last 25 years. And we now have commercial conservation agreements throughout the North Atlantic range, in Newfoundland, in Labrador, in Iceland, Greenland, Faroes, around Ireland, Northern Ireland, in the North Sea. Back in 2003, NASF, we engaged in agreements in the North Sea, and we bought out the most of the drift nets in the northeast of England with the help of Tony Blair government. He gave us 1/3 of the money, we raised 2/3. Most of these agreements are promoted by NASF and our fishing partners, conservation partners around the world. But sometimes we receive governmental support in finding the money. The Northeast Drift Nets costed £3.6 million. We raised 2.4 million, and Tony Blair gave us 1.4. So what we need to do? First of all, we need to have a new action plans and with sort of effective policies, just like they do in the banking industry. We have to have new people. Most of the people have been working there, going to these international organizations. They go to international organizations like NASCO, simply to try to get new projects, new research projects for their agencies, and they forget all the practical actions that can be done, or the common sense approach that can be done. We have to have, I think, new methodology like catch and release, like many other things, have been very, very slow. It is slow in my country, Iceland, it is slow in other countries. I think most of the rivers, we have 2,600 rivers with salmon, everything into the North Atlantic. I think every single river needs more salmon. And we must coordinate our effort between the private and public sector, and we must streamline and have new effective plans. Our philosophy is the philosophy of abundance. I have never heard about the river with there too many fish, too many salmon in it. So we need more and more salmon. That is our, and of course the rivers in Europe have many of them in France and Germany and Spain. And in Spain, 300 years ago, they caught 670,000 salmon. 50 years ago, they caught already 25,000 salmon. Last year, it's down to 1,000 salmon. They still want to kill all the roost. They don't understand that the rivers need more broodstock. The reason I believe in commercial conservation agreements, because we need more fish now. That's the quickest, most effective way of getting fish back into the rivers, and with more rivers, owners are willing to come and pay good money for the fishing that generates more profit for the industry. So we are able to get more and more restoration projects implemented. And I would like to see more and more leadership from the private sector. I would like to see the clubs running most of the rivers, like we do in Iceland. By no means do we have a perfect system in Iceland, but it's working. And we need more dynamics throughout. So we have done commercial agreements covering about 85% of the entire range of the salmon range, covering about 85,200 netsmen and longliners have signed that. How do we broker these agreements? By using the private sector to do this. Governments cannot do it. Governments can set law, ban, and so on. This is not about banning. This is about developing cooperative agreements with the netsmen who have these fishing rights. You can never take these fishing rights away from the people in Norway, in Scotland, and Ireland. You have to negotiate with them. You have to give them something in return. They have these property rights, and you have to, if you want to take it away from them, you have to negotiate. They have to say yes, and we help them like we do. We try to find, we set up funds in different countries, and these funds are used to give netsmen money so they can re-equip their boat, re-equip their methodology, and go into other sustainable fisheries that makes them more money, that gives them a better lifestyle and higher income. So that is how we see the future of the remaining nets. I want to come back to my map. About 85% of the nets are now covered by these agreements. In Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador, it was done mostly by private sector money. In Greenland, we have been working on and off with them since 1992, with the help of the State Department, by the way. They were very, very helpful in the 1990s, promoted by George Bush Sr. They are in trouble now because I think no one has suddenly realized that there's so few salmon there. Unless we do something drastic now, it may be too late. And after so all the US salmon from the main rivers go and feed along the west coast of Greenland. That is why Greenland is critical. In Greenland, we have been directing the netsmen away from salmon over to lungfish, over to snow crab, over to shrimps, all kinds of other things. In the Faroe Islands, we have had a complete in perpetuity agreement since 1991. No salmon has been caught there except few for experimental purposes, for scientific research, and it is now completely safe. The area around Ireland, we rent out the nets in the Bay of Biscay. On the French side, we pay the people, fishermen, the people that fish for salmon and eats in the spring. We pay them money not to fish. On the Spanish side, it's no need to because it's already covered by agreement from 1941 by no less person than General Vicimo Franco, who banned the netting in 1941. As I've told you before, we bought out most of the drift nets in the North Sea, the Northeast drift nets. We have tested, we did with a Norwegian group, we leased out the nets in the Trondheim fjord of Nordic. There are 43 important salmon rivers that empty into the Trondheim fjord, and we leased it out for 5 years, just to show the Norwegian government it could be done, and it could be done effectively. But they have not. They never wanted to speak to us. They like the European Union. We still have problems with the Indians in the St. Lawrence Bay. There are a couple of projects already on the way there with the Listicus Mi'kmaq Indians that used to fish fishing rights out of the Grand Cascadia, which is one of the most beautiful rivers in the whole world. And but most of our efforts in the last few years has been in Norway. The 15% of interceptable mixed of fish in the ocean mostly takes place in Norway, and mostly in Finland, where, as I've told you before, is taking salmon returning to the native rivers in Russia. We have written a complete document for the Russian Foreign Office and said this is how we do it. We charge Norway for violation of the treaty and take it to court. The International Tribunal for the Law of the Sea in Hamburg. The other problem, of course, nowadays, in the last 20 years, mostly in Norway, is the fish farming issue. We in Iceland, we try to promote that all salmon farms, and we need salmon farms, should be land-based, where they can be controlled or in closed containers. This is, and there are several good projects now being developed all over the world to make this possible. This is the modern way. The problem in Norway is so bad that 2 weeks ago, the biggest fish farmer in the world, John Fredriksson, you probably heard this. He is the richest Norwegian alive. He owns most of the marine harvest. He said publicly himself, I'm sorry, the problem is so much out of hand. He encouraged the Norwegian government not to issue any more licenses because the problems are resolved. The fish farming industry says, no, there's no problem. Why, if there's no problem, why are there 1,000 universities and scientific institutions all over the world studying the problems of fish farming? It's because something is major wrong. I just want to show you this. This is one of the rivers in Iceland where we had fish farms out in the bay in the 1980s and early 1990s. It came and went back to a river in Iceland, one of the most prolific rivers that used to be there, like some Jones. And in 2003, we calculated the loss to the farmers who leased out the fishing rights to sport fishing, and they lost about 50 million kroner over a few-year period. So, mostly because there was a loss of confidence. Anglers who used to pay good prices to come and fish there, they no longer wanted to pay these high prices. So the farmers lost a lot of money. The other problem I mentioned are dams. We are engaged with our conservation partner in North America, the Atlantic Salmon Federation. We raised money, about $20 million, to buy out the farms on the Penobscot River in Maine. And a few years ago, we were asked by the French government to make a proposal for the salmon fishing rivers in Normandy. And we identified 2 major dams on the river Salmon. And to my surprise, the French government said yes, we will put them down. And at the moment in Iceland, there are proposals for 3 dams on Iceland major river. This is in a very famous area where we have an important habitat for the pink-footed goose. They want to dam the rivers there, and we have fought that very, very hard not to take place. And 2 weeks ago, I met with the Minister of Energy in the UK, in the House of Lords, and he assured me that they will never buy electricity from Iceland if it was generated from sources that was not renewable, not sustainable, and not clean. Catch and release, I'm going to finish this off by talking about catch and release. This is my model river in Iceland called the River Selá, and we we built a fish ladder there back in 1969. That improved the catch slowly to about from 100 fish a year to about 700 fish a year. Then we started catch and release, and because we had habitat that emerged, we were able to utilize it. So our average catch in that river is now over 2,000 salmon. And now this river is like the famous Alta River in Nordic, one of the most expensive rivers in the world. And we promote catch and release very, very heavily. And thanks to North Americans who introduced catch and release in the world, I think this has been underestimated here in Finland, and in Sweden, and in many other parts of the world, that this is the way forward. We also have rivers that are virtually dead, almost without any salmon or with very, very little salmon. But we have a river in England called the River Tyne, which empties out of the North Sea through Newcastle. Some of you probably know that river. A person, one of our collaborators, Peter Gray, he started working on that river many, many years ago. He introduced a new methodology of stocking. Stocking, of course, is always our second option. We always use natural wild fish to help our rivers. But when the stocks are so low, below safe biological levels, nothing else but stocking will do. So this shows how stocking, if it's done properly. Most of the stockings over the last 20 years has been done in a way that has not worked. That is why I contacted the American authorities a few years ago and said, okay, let us try in Maine rivers something like the River Tyne. And they gave us a river called the East Machias, which is in east of Bangor, down east area. And we have now had that for 2 years because the Fish and Wildlife Service, they do have broodstock from that river. And I told them, look guys, I need 400,000 eggs for the next 10 years. And I will guarantee private sector finance for that river. They said yes, and we started. First year, they gave us only 80,000. Second year is 122,000. You have to give me 400,000 eggs for 10 years. Then we did. I'm not sure this is going to be 100% workable, but I think it's the way to do it. They wanted to do their own way, planting eggs and so on. And I told them, look, we've been trying that for 200 years. It hasn't worked. Now they actually changed their ways and they're going to support us 100%. So maybe we will see. So the short version, what we do in Europe, we have to have the respect for the full life cycle of salmon. You have an international treaty called the NASCO Treaty, which discriminates between nations. That is why it will never work, it will never help. It says to Greenland and Faroe Islands, you have to stop fishing or you have to have a quotas. But they say to Norway, to Ireland and to Scotland and even Canada, you can have maybe unlimited fishing. That kind of treaty doesn't work. And the ICES that give the scientific advice there, they and the scientific community, they only want to study the problem in the sea around Greenland, north of the Faroe Islands. If you only do that, you only identify the problems there and not in your home countries. The problem in Europe mostly is the home waters. When the salmon leaves the rivers as 50 gram smolts, you have to take care of the salmon there. And that, of course, they are destroyed often by the agriculture industry. And if you ask a scientist in Europe, or England, and Ireland, what are your salmon spot feeding on when they go to the sea, nobody has a clue. They avoid having a look at that. We must end all mixed stock fisheries. In fact, we have just launched in the UK a program which promotes there should be no fish killed in the next few years. Because we need all the broodstock. Because this downward trend is accelerating, and global warming, and maybe it's more difficult. So I'm saying, let's try to fill the river, see what we can do with more broodstock. And it's not enough only to release the big salmon, you also have to release the small salmon, because the big salmon genes are also in the breeds. And finally, we need a new international agreement with Atlantic salmon. I met with the State Department and NOAA in January. I said, this is what we need. Stop hatching up NASCO, stop hatching up some system that has never worked. Because the people who go there are not in the right people who make a new treaty or change the treaty. There are other people in home government that do that. I had a little talk about the Icelandic fishing industry, but my colleagues from the freshwater initiative will tell you much more about it. But we try to run our industry mostly on conservation lines, so modern conservation and doing practical common sense things. These are the salmon catches in Iceland with the courtesy of the Freshwater Institute. We've had 12 very, very good years, except in 2012. There was certainly a dip. Nobody has a clue why, but it all came back last year. So the salmon fishing really has been very good there. Appears to be good, but of course there are many factors we don't know about. Thank you very much.